Joe's Farm Grill and Joe's Grill Barbecue, and I think on the third restaurant he decided he was Joe'd out, so he went with Liberty Market. And today he'll be talking on social media in the third place. So thanks for coming out, Joe.
Can you hear me okay? We're going to adjust it.
It's not your fault for technology.
It's not my fault. How's that? Better? Okay, cool. I know it's kind of old school, but I did provide some notes for people to take if they like that sort of thing using pencils. And the guy in the corner, that is not me. That's not me after plastic surgery, or before plastic surgery. So that's Ray Oldenburg, who coined the phrase the third place, and so we'll talk about that momentarily. But my name is Joe Johnson, and I'm an engineer by training. And I did engineering for 7 years, and then for the past 20 years I've been involved with third places, creating them, stewarding them, operating them, and we will talk about that shortly. My wife Cindy is here in the front row. We've been married for almost 25 years. And so it's a pleasure to be here at Gangplank. It seems to me that Gangplank is something of a third place itself, as I've been able to hang out here a little bit. The term third place came from Ray Oldenburg, the man in the photo, who wrote a book called The Great Good Place in the late 80s. And he coined the term third place because there were already kind of like two places. The house being place number one, where you can kind of cocoon, have family life. It's kind of an insular sort of thing, where you're protected and you rest. And then there's the workspace, where you're able to work and accomplish things, work with a team of people to do productive work. But there's also this thing called the third place, which would be characterized by community building, relationship building, going across cultural lines, demographic lines, and places that are third places would be things like pubs in England or Ireland. They would be in France, street-side cafes, beer gardens in Germany, barber shops, town squares. There's many forms of these third places. And he made a very good point that these are the places that really glue society together. It's where people not like yourself can get together and you can talk and find out that people are really more alike than they are different. And you can iron out problems, differences, and come to appreciate other cultures and other people. And he felt as though the absence of those in suburbia was one of the problems in the United States, and so one of his aims in life has been to promote the third place. Well, I myself have been involved with third places now for 20 years since we started Coffee Plantation on Mill Avenue back in 1989. And so I want to talk a little bit about some of the characteristics of third places, first of all, and then talk about social media relative to third places. One of the things that Ray Oldenburg did was kind of come up with 8 different characteristics that define a good third place. And so I'm going to pull out of my pocket my notes, and we'll go through those 8 characteristics. The 8 characteristics are on your note sheet as well. So let's talk about those. And what I'm going to do as I go through is describe the characteristic, and then how we at Liberty Market, for example, since that's our newest place, have tried to intentionally create those characteristics. After that, I'm going to talk about social media being kind of a virtual third place. Okay, so the first characteristic of a good third place is that it is neutral ground. And by neutral ground, we mean that no person is more important than the other. It's not a hosted situation. It's not a place where there's a leader you have to follow. It's not a place where there's any expectations that you have to talk to anybody or not talk to anybody. That you can sit and relax. There's no time constraints. It's not like work where there's time and mandatory constraints on what you do. It's not like at home where there's like rules and you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to pay your taxes. No. At a third place, it's neutral ground. There's plenty of time. There's the ability to do what you want to do, to leave when you want to stay when you want to stay as long as you want. And it has a feeling of hominess, of comfort, so you feel comfortable and able to stay there as long as you wish. Now, the Liberty Market, and our other restaurants for that matter, one of the reasons that we've set them up the way that we do, service system-wise, is to make for neutral ground. We have very unstructured service systems, which makes for confusion for the first timers sometimes. It irritates people to think that it should be a steakhouse in Scottsdale with very regimented, hostess, and then there's this and that. But we intentionally make it so that if you want to stay there 5 minutes or you want to stay there 5 hours, you can do that. And by the fact that we do not have a waitress come to your table, starting the whole process, setting the time frame you have to work under, that allows a huge amount of flexibility. So we've intentionally designed our service system so that there's a huge amount of freedom as to how much you spend and how long you stay. Okay. Now, the second characteristic is that it is a leveler. A good third place is a leveler, meaning that people from all walks of life feel comfortable there. And that is hugely important in our society, that we understand that poor people and rich people often have similar issues personally in their lives. People of different ethnic backgrounds have often very similar issues in their lives. And to be able to have people from all walks of life see that, the other person really isn't that strange after all, and we really share a lot of common things and a lot of issues in our lives, that's important. So having a place where everybody belongs, not just one social group, that is very important. And what we try to do in our places would be design them so that we reduce the number of barriers to the lowest possible. So in the design of the place, we're not trying to make it so that it looks exclusive or it looks overly fancy or overly ornate, so that it starts to cut off certain groups of people. Similarly, we set our price points so that their barrier to entry in Liberty Market is $1.66, one shot of espresso. And so if you pay $1.66, including tax, then you're entitled to stay there pretty much as long as you want. And if you're a homeless person and you can't even pay that amount, well, we'll just talk about it and we'll figure out something, and then you can eat and you can stay. So that's kind of how we try to do the leveling process, trying to make sure that everybody feels welcome. Now, thirdly, conversation. Conversation in the third place is the main activity. It's not necessarily eating. It's not necessarily drinking, although those things facilitate the conversation and have something to have on the table with you, but actually conversation is the main activity in a good third place. And that's lively conversation, lots of discussions, lots of buzz. And that's one thing we're always looking for, at least when we go out, places where there's a lot of activity and a lot of talk. And I'm going to talk a little bit later when we talk about conversation relative to social media. There's some actual rules that Ray Oldenburg suggested would be good to adhere to in social conversation for community building. I think you'll find them rather humorous and pretty pithy, actually. One of the things we try to do in our places to foster communication would be the way the tables are put together, and also the fact that the music is never that loud. And a lot of places that you go to, you have to shout to converse, and you're really competing in that situation with the main thing, which is conversation. And so having the music down low and having the tables arranged so that conversation can happen is really important. Okay, then next I want to talk about accessibility. It's important, and I think like a gangplank, it's really cool that it's open long hours. Accessibility for a third place just means that it is designed so that people can come during different times of the day, in different situations, that it's easy to get to, and that it's not just a 2-hour long window that you can come to. And so at Liberty Market, for example, we have day parts starting from 7 a.m. going until 9 p.m. 7 days a week. So that if you wanted to come visit and hang out and see if some other regulars are there, you would have many opportunities to do it. and we have different products to sell during that time frame, because really we do have to monetize the third place, and we can't afford to not charge for the third place. But we do design it so that you can buy things at various times of the day, sit down and enjoy. Now, one of the really, really key things are regulars, because ultimately, gangplank here without the regulars is nothing. It's just a room with, a bunch of posters, some mechanical things hanging from the ceiling. It's really nothing. And same thing with Liberty Market as well. Without the regulars, it's just like a hollow shell of a building. We do try to set a scene, set a stage that's appealing to the regulars, that they will come and enjoy, but ultimately it's the people themselves that make the place what it is. And regulars are super important. The regulars are the ones that foster the conversation. They're also the ones that, when newcomers come, embrace them, bring them in, and make regulars out of them as well. And so that idea of the regular is super important. And if we talk a little later about how we use social media, that fostering of regulars and making sure the regulars are connected is hugely important to us. Some of the things that we do along those lines that are not social media would be, I try to get to know as many of the customers as possible, because I enjoy the third place myself, and so I really enjoy being part of that whole activity, not just like a bystander. And so I like to meet new people and then try to network them to find out, if you like this, I know that this person over there likes the same thing, and try to put them together. For instance, Catherine Green writes for the Arizona Republic. I knew that she likes to speak German and that she spent time in Germany. And then I met another guy who also likes to speak German. I put them together, actually via Twitter, because they weren't in the building at the same time. I said, you gotta contact her, because she really enjoys speaking German and doesn't have anybody to speak with. And the result of that is there was an article written in the Republic on Kurt's grandmother, who started a bakery in post-war Germany and stitched a flag out of U.S. flag out of material. It was a really heartwarming article that came from just getting two people together with a common interest that wouldn't have known that otherwise. So we work really hard on trying to network people together. Another thing would be that a third place is low profile. And sometimes I would argue with Ray Oldenburg on this, but probably not. He says that normally a third place is kind of plain looking. And so if we look at gangplank, we would say it's not ornate and it's not a very flowery looking place. It's kind of utilitarian. But and if you go to the Liberty Market, same thing. It's not overly wrought. It's not a fancy place. It's really just kind of the structure itself, and then allowing for people themselves to be the focus. And we actually intentionally did that at Liberty Market, was making sure that the people, both the brigade members who are the people that are serving you at Liberty Market, and the people who are the regulars of Liberty Market are the life of Liberty Market, and not the building and not design features that are just there to be enjoyed. Then also the mood is playful. And that's really important, that the overall mood of the place be upbeat and playful, because people have a lot of difficulty in life anyhow. So you don't want to go to a place that's overly serious, boring, annoying, pretentious, all those sorts of things. Who needs it? And so the mood of playfulness is a really key aspect of great third places. And I noticed when we came in here today that everybody was, they were working in small groups, kind of enjoying themselves, and clearly, with the dartboard and all this other stuff over here, there's clearly an atmosphere of playfulness here. We try to have the same sort of thing at Liberty Market, of having an upbeat atmosphere, full of joking, enjoyment, that sort of thing. And then lastly, it should be home-like. A good third place should almost feel like home. You should feel psychological comfort, you should feel welcome, you should feel warm, and it's a place that you can hang out and almost be like a home to you. And we try to do that at Liberty Market as well. Obviously here, there's a lot of homey touches. We've got the couch over here with the gents, and the bean bag, and other homey features, and so that's a very, very important thing as well. So those are 8 characteristics of a third place. And there's a lot of places that would seem like they should be third places, but they're not. A lot of restaurants would aspire to be like a third place, but they tend to be focused on strictly on product and less on third place. They tend to, you're actually renting a table. As soon as you've paid your bill, you're out of there. And so that makes it a lot of restaurants difficult to be seen as third places. In Europe, it's a little different. If you're in a Parisian bistro or a street-side cafe, they do not bring the bill to you until you ask for it. So very much like in Liberty Market, you can stay there all day on one espresso. In America, a lot of times we have the thought time is money, and I don't really like that. I think that you should enjoy life, and so the whole time is money thing can be very counterproductive. And this idea if you're renting a table sometimes is irritating. Well, now we haven't talked about social media that much, so I think you're interested in that. So let me talk about that. I myself have had no involvement in social media whatsoever until the beginning of the year. And Jamie Mulhern over here, fellow Vespian, said, Joe, you should check this thing out. She herself wasn't on it, but she said, Joe, she's been avoiding getting on it, but Joe, you should check it out. So I checked it out, and the interesting thing that I found was that as I looked at it closely, particularly Twitter, and I only do Twitter, I have no comment on Facebook or anything else, but the thing I liked about Twitter is that I started looking at it, I was saying, man, this thing is just like a third place. It's got all those 8 attributes, and it's like a virtual third place. And so why not use this to like leverage a real third place? And so that's what I started doing. And just by trial and error, because it's a pretty new medium, so I'll just try some stuff. And so I just want to kind of go through those 8 points again with respect to Twitter and see if you don't agree with me. So first of all, neutral ground. Well, Twitter is definitely neutral ground because it's not hosted. It's even hard to get a hold of the company. And so, it's like, anybody can enter. You can watch and say nothing. You can enter into as much discourse as you'd like. It's like a totally no barriers to entry to that. So being neutral ground for sure. And being a leveler, again, there's people from all walks of life, obviously, on Twitter. And you can go through different social barriers. You can go through demographic barriers, locational barriers. It's really exciting to do that. As an example, Cindy and I were having a party at our house, a mole party, and we were going to be cooking and having a party all day long. And Rick Bayless, a chef from Chicago, he wrote the recipe that we're using. He was on Food Network and all these things. So I tweeted him, I said, well, we're going to have a vegetarian, and your recipe says we need to use lard, and it needs to use chicken stock. And I said, what can I do about that? And so he suggested, using vegetable oil would be fine, and instead of using vegetable stock, he said use just water. And, I mean, how are you going to get a hold of Rick Bayless, just like, he's in Chicago, and he tweeted back, so there's a lot of interesting ways of talking to people you wouldn't ordinarily be able to talk to. So that idea of being a leveler is really amazing. And then conversation is the main thing. Well, yeah. So on Twitter, that's all it is a bunch of conversation. Definitely conversation is the main thing on Twitter. Now, I didn't want to read those rules I was alluding to from Ray Oldenburg because I think his rules were actually very appropriate to Twitter. First of all, these are his 7 rules of social discourse for the sort of community-building conversation we're looking for. One of them is to remain silent your share of the time. And if you've been on Twitter, there's some who are not silent their share of the time. but have being silent and kind of not chiming out everything, that's a good thing. And then number 2 is be attentive while others are talking. And so, kind of paying attention to what some of your regulars are doing and watching what they're doing and being able to chime in is a good thing. All right. Harry, say what you think, but be careful. And Occasionally I said things that I probably shouldn't have said. But yeah, I think that's a really important thing, is to be careful what you say, but you should say what you think, or else it's like totally boring otherwise. Avoid topics not of general interest. And I've seen a lot of topics come up that were not of general interest. Like my cat pooped on the carpet and I wiped it out. Just stuff like that, that's very, very boring. And then, I don't know about this one, say little or nothing about yourself personally, but talk about others they're assembled. I don't know if that works. Number 6 is avoid trying to instruct. And I think, on Twitter that's probably a wise idea to just telling people get their life together and that sort of thing. Probably not good. And then he also recommends for, in third place, is speak in a low voice as will allow others to hear. I'm not sure how that works at Twitter exactly. Okay. So then, getting back to the accessibility as a third place with Twitter, it's definitely very, very accessible to people. It's 24/7. It's accessible via, obviously, the computer, via the mobile phone. I use my BlackBerry, iTouch, all that sort of thing. So it's definitely accessible. There's definitely the regulars, and I know that for me personally, at Liberty Market, we're always monitoring our regulars and what's going on in their life, and that idea of regulars is a big deal in social media. Furthermore, we do try to bring in newcomers and have newcomers understand that we're glad they joined us. We want them to become regulars. And so again, there's an idea of welcoming the newcomers and making sure you stay connected with the regulars. Also, Twitter is definitely low profile. It's kind of a bare bones application that has not that many bells and whistles, and that's really, really good because it allows you to focus strictly on the conversation and not be impeded by extra bells and whistles and all sorts of stuff. So I think that it's definitely low profile. I would say that the mood is generally playful. Occasionally there's people that are trying to sell stuff, and the mood of that's not that playful, but most people enjoy the playfulness of it. And also, there is a home life of sorts. I know that my wife doesn't Twitter, so she doesn't really necessarily appreciate it as much. But I know that I like the fact that I'm connecting with people and seeing what their lives are like, and there's something comforting about that. So I would say then that Twitter is very much like a third place, except it's a virtual third place. And what we've tried to do is integrate those two things together. The real third place, which will, in my opinion, will never be replaced by a virtual third place, and actually leverage the real third place by using Twitter as a virtual third place. Let me talk a little bit about some of those things that we do. Okay, first of all, one thing that we really, really try to do, actually on all the sites that I author, is to be active in the dialogue, to not just be the occasional person who chimes in on something, but to always be active, be talking about other restaurants, places to go, and that sort of thing. And so to be actively in the game and not just a bystander that talks about a 2-for-1 special or something like that. So always being in the game is something we're always working on. We're always trying also to make sure our regulars know that we really appreciate them and that they're a key part of our business. And so one of the things we do is we ask for their advice, because in many respects, Liberty Market is a home to them. And so if we're going to think about adding something new, or if we're going to be changing something, I would like to get their advice. And it's great. Just recently, we were just talking about, should we add a BLT? And so we've probably got about, I would say, 20 different people that tweeted back, yeah, we'd love to see a BLT. Have you thought about adding avocado? We really like avocado, and all that sort of thing. And so we're able to actually get some great customer feedback from our regulars who are multiple time a week visitors right off the bat. So that's great. And they feel also, I think, involved in the process, that we are listening to them, we do care, because we really do, and we're able to make adjustments that way. We also make a point of noting their visits. Like if I notice somebody's been there, I see them, we try to make a note of their visit, or if they report something, we try to make a note of that, because we want people to know that they are really important to us, because, as I said, it's just an empty shell without our regulars, and so noting everybody that comes in as much as possible is something that we try to do. It's just a part of breeding, actually. And then we also are trying to communicate our two big things. We have two big things at Liberty Market that we're trying to do. We're trying to, first of all, have a passion for the food, and we're also trying to serve from the heart. And so we're trying to do those two things. I want to communicate through our tweets those two things, the passion for the food, the serving from the heart. The passion for the food we try to communicate through classes, through photos of food that we're working on, with chefs talking about what he's working on, all those different things, different ingredients, beers we're trying, wines we're trying, all those things, to try to instill in our regulars an idea that, hey, we're in on this too, and we'd like to share that passion as well. And people that are on Twitter actually get advance notice of a lot of those things, because it's just not practical in other ways to do mailings and things to people, and you don't get the instant feedback. So we use that thing for communicating the two big things. The serving from the heart part, we try to communicate, on premises, because it's kind of hard to convey that over the internet. But we try to do that to show them we care, that we're interested in their lives and what's going on. We do try also to be playful and have some humor if possible. We have a mayor, his name is Sonny Thacker, he's right there, and we try to, we get to joke with him a lot. For example, if you have any problems at Liberty Market, he's the person to address them to, not to me. And so we get to have a lot of fun with our people. We also use it to connect with real events in our real third place. For example, Chris over here has been organizing East Valley Thursday mornings, and he's having one at Liberty Market tomorrow. Also, we've done East Valley Friday night. We will also have Create AZ, the event with Natasha, which was well attended and really interesting, with Izzy doing videoing of it. And so we try to use that also, Twitter to also connect back into real events that we're doing. And lastly, we just enjoy using it. So that is all I had to say about third places and social media. But I would be happy to answer any questions on any topic, business or food or anything. Oh, that's my wife. It was like this because it's off limits.
Yeah. So being in third place, having a situation where people come and spend very little money and spend a long period of time. How do you feel about people who come in and bring their own food, or part of a bigger group, but one of the people that's like brought in their own snacks or a power bar or a sandwich or something? Like in the context of the whole group, how do you feel about that? If you handle something like that? Because we've had experience with this in other places where we've been chastised for it. So it's kind of a regular thing. How do you deal with it? How do you feel about it? Obviously, it's not the ideal situation, but
it's not the ideal situation. I tend to be a little bit more lenient on it than most, but. You do, with a third place, you do have to monetize it somehow. And for cities, they do it through tax revenues, through gangplank. I'm not sure exactly how it works.
Like $900 on fire.
Yeah. Well, I heard it was like the sugar daddy methodology. But in other places, like we designed Agritopia, there are third places there, and it's supported by the monies from the HOA to maintain certain things. But where we're at, we have to sell product. That's how we monetize our third place.
What talkbacks behind that?
You might be pointing out, honestly, I don't like to confront people and boot them. I think ultimately that's like counterproductive. And if it's a habit, if it's just like a one-time thing, or if it's a minor thing, I normally let it slide, because again, it's not. We're trying to have that playful mood, and we get really heavy with people, particularly if others are buying. I try to avoid that. At the barbecue, we have a lot of people bringing outside food, like McDonald's food and stuff like that, and for kids, and that's just going to happen. The one thing that I think is more of an irritant is when people bring in Starbucks cups into the Liberty Market. And normally, we just make them an equal drink for free. So why don't you try it side by side and see where you want to go next time. But we don't really like it, but I'm not going to really, I don't really come down hard on it. Yes.
You mentioned how other cultures are more open to this sort of environment in their restaurants.
Right.
I worked at Applebee's for years, and there was a very structured timeline of how we took care of our guests, I guess. Is this something that has never really been the case in this culture, or is that something that the corporations have kind of taken away from?
Well, I think that you have to. I think that Applebee's and other restaurants are in a product-driven business, and so I think that it's okay for restaurants to operate in that way and to have an order of service, a timeline order of service. But in doing that, they do trade off certain things. They do trade off certain kinds of business by doing that. They are not going to have the 40 agency come and visit or an office stay there. So I think it's an okay model. I mean, we went to a restaurant last night that was very, very good, and they clearly want to have a certain order of service that goes on. But that's more of a product-driven thing. And I think that, for example, when we first opened Coffee Plantation, we thought we were in the coffee business, but it became really obvious later on that we were in the meeting place business, and we had accidentally stumbled on doing the 8 things really, really well. And so I think you just have to pick and choose what you want to do. There are a ton of other third places that are unrelated to food. Barber shops, smoke shops, cigar shops, beauty parlors, spas, the gym, all those sorts of things. And obviously, this place is unrelated to food. A common interest, but unrelated to food. Yes, Chris.
You mentioned that the design of Liberty isn't this over the top design thing, but it's obviously very intentionally put together, and I really dig that. One of the things that I noticed there and at the first place I encountered it was at Farmville was the bathrooms. I guess I just want to know kind of what informed the design there. Is that more just kind of feel like have fun with that, or was it kind of like I want people to talk about this, and what's the thinking?
Well, I like bathrooms, and I spend a lot of time in the bathroom, and so reading in the bathroom, using my touch in the bathroom. But beyond that, I think a restaurant says a lot about a restaurant. It's a famous truth that you can tell a lot about the kitchen from the restaurant, and it's really true. And so I wanted to make sure that the restrooms said a lot about the business. For Liberty, for example, there's 5 restrooms designed by 5 different people, and they all have their own personalities. I just want people to know that this is a personal restaurant. It's not a corporate restaurant. There's 5 different people with 5 different opinions on how things should be done, and they obviously are passionate about several different things, and we just wanted to show that it was not a corporate restaurant, but it's definitely a design-driven, passionate restaurant. So we just wanted to show that. We're trying to keep them spotlessly clean. The ones at the Farm Grill, we're trying to convey that it's a mid-century modern retro-futuristic restaurant. And so the restrooms show that, and there's little touches of things that are personal to me, the Stingray videos, the G.I. Joes, all that sort of thing, not the Barbies.
What about the other design elements in the restaurants? What are other aspects to the place?
Well, the playlist at all the restaurants is involved with that. The level of audio is important to that. The comfort of seats, a lot of different things. The size of the tables, the lighting. There's a lot of different things that come together to make it a third place. You can never design something that's totally barrierless for every group of people, because there's going to be people who will come into Liberty Market and say, well, this place is not for me. Just by looking at it, because all the visual cues and say, this is too hip, or this is not country enough, or something. And they will come in and they'll just say, this place isn't for me. I mean, there's going to be people, my mother, if she comes in here, she's going to say, this place, this gangplank is not for me. And so, but we're trying to minimize that as much as possible while being consistent with our own design aesthetic. We have a certain design aesthetic we're trying to achieve, and we just need to be consistent with that while dropping the barriers to entry. Yes, sir.
Any chance you bring another really cool third place in the lounder?
No. Because I promised my wife we wouldn't build anything further than 10 minutes from our house. And then also we decided that we weren't going to do anything where we didn't own the building. So it's hard to buy real estate on Mill Avenue. Plus it's more than 10 minutes away. But it'll be interesting to see what happens to Mill Avenue, whether it's going to fall off into the dark ages that were pre-Center Point, or if it's going to have a renaissance with a lot of independence. We'll see.
Yes, sir. I saw one of your restaurants featured on Food Network, and I'm just wondering how that came about. Opportunity there.
Yeah, the diners, drive-ins, and dives for the Joe's Farm Grill. We have no idea. Basically, all that was said to us was that you've been recommended by a customer or customers that you be on diners, drive-ins, and dives. And then we said, send us some stuff, send us some photos, some information, send us a menu. And so they were looking at both the barbecue and the farm grill, and we sent them both. And then we didn't hear anything. And then later we heard some more. They asked for more. And then like 10 days before they were going to come out, they called and said, we're coming out, we're to the farm grill, we want you to cook this. This is what we're going to feature. Give us the ingredient list for all these things. It's just a huge amount of information. And then they spent, they shot approximately 16 hours of video to make the 12 minutes of the show. So it was a very interesting process. They were very professional. And the guy was a great guy.
Can you talk about the status of today's coffee shop or the business, as we see lots of places come and go? What overall?
The status of today's coffee shop, that is a broad-ranging topic, but I will address it since I have the mic. Well, it seems to me like there's a little bit of there's a little bit of a split between places that are product-driven and places that are third places. And I don't know, if the best ones are product-driven places that have coffee much better than they need to have it, even though they're a really good third place. Some places just rest on their laurels of being a third place, and then they just let the quality slide. If you can do both, and I will venture to say that there's 3 or 4 that I really like. Am I allowed to do a commercial? Like I like Cartel in Tempe because it's a great third place and a great coffee. I like Lola's Coffee on Central. Again, really good quality and a very good third place. And then there's some smaller ones like Conspire. There's some down in Tucson. Those are some ones I like personally. But then again, there's a certain design aesthetic that I prefer, and others for their design aesthetic. They are not as broad demographic coffee houses as I would like to build, because some older people that go in there would probably not like that, just because of the design factor. And so I would probably try to make mine, if I'm going to do another one, a little bit more broad demographic and still hit the same quality points. And then, of course, there's change. Starbucks, I think, is trying hard to remake itself. But, questions?
Yeah. So go ahead.
Sir?
Yeah, you said you just got into this part of the social networking. What was it that you observed being in a traditional, brick and mortar business, and then getting in this? Where do you see they really connect?
I see them connecting in basically the ability to network, because for me personally, my personal giftedness is a person of vision, a visionary. And a visionary, all they do is they put together ideas, like random ideas. They figure out how random ideas get together and work together. And for me, I like to be a steward of people's individual gifts, and so I try to network people together for a common cause. And I think that social networking or social media allows you to find out more about a broader variety of people more quickly and put people together more quickly than you could if you had to just do it randomly with people walking in off the street. And so I just enjoy the broader scope of it. I find it very interesting, and I also like following. Like Jess Harder here is in the food business, and other people are in the food business. So I follow them. Matthew over there is a man who loves to go to coffee houses and places that serve good food, and I like to hear what they have to say. It just allows me to gather a lot more information and make more relationships than I could otherwise. So I enjoy it.
What are your favorite restaurants in the area?
My favorite, what's the radius?
Chandler, Gilbert-ish, around there.
Okay. So I like, aside from ours, which I do like ours, quite frankly. I think that, let's see, where do we eat the most? I like, okay, I'll start over in Chandler. We were at Cork last night. That was really good. It's probably the only fine dining restaurant in the East Valley. That was really good. And they have a dinner special for $25 up until 6 o'clock, 3 courses plus a glass of wine for $25. It's like a really good deal. So I love that place. Good service. Let's see, then in downtown Chandler, I like Latitude 8, which is kind of a Thai Vietnamese restaurant. I like that a lot. In Gilbert, where do we go in Gilbert? We cook a lot. Where else do we like? I like Cornish Pasty Company. If you follow me at all, you know I like Cornish Pasty Company. And that's in Tempe. Yeah, the one on Dobson and Guadalupe. Where do we go for Mexican? We cook good Mexican. My son wants to do Mexican someday, so it'll be good. What's that? Lily wants to. Where else do we have to go? Yeah, we avoid chains, so.
Did you say you own Joe's Barbecue downtown?
Yeah, I'm a partner there.
And what do you think the effect is? I read about it in the Republic. The effect is it once a year you have the free sandwich, and they said the line is unbelievable. What do you think the outcome of that is? Besides a lot of people broiling in the heat.
Well, it has 3 good outcomes. One of the outcomes is, and it gets back to the whole third place thing, is the regulars. One of our goals is to thank our regulars for being regulars, because we've got a lot of people are once a week people there. I mean, they eat 52 meals there a year. And so to say thank you by a free meal is a very tangible way of saying thank you. Secondly, for newcomers, we just talked about newcomers a bit, to have people who come for the first time and are able to try something and enjoy it and see the whole thing for free. There's no risk there, and so they enjoy that. And then thirdly, media, conventional media and non-conventional media. We get probably, it costs us about $20,000 to do the free meal.
How much?
$20,000. But we probably get $30,000 worth of free press off of that, because there's not that many unique things going on in the valley. There's 2-for-1 special here or there. There's not that many people that do things for totally free. So we get a lot of media attention. And then the spillover effect is, quite frankly, I would say in the first month we get back all the money we spent. So it's not a done thing. We've been doing it since Coffee Plantation. We did free coffee day, free all sorts of days. That was fun. We did Coffee Amnesty week at Coffee Plantation. Bring in any of your old coffee and we give you a pound of our new coffee. Bring in a half can of Folgers, or bring in a bag of Starbucks, and then we proudly built a huge mountain of it so people could see everybody else's brands that they were switching out to our brand. And that was good to me.
You talked a little about the business history of what started Coffee Plantation and how you ended up with Joe's and how it all came about.
Sure. I am an engineer by training, and was involved in consulting engineering and electrical engineering. And some buddies and I got together for a little social club. And each month we would bring in a topic, almost like gangplank here, and we would present. One time it was on cigars, one time it was on rum, and another time it was on specialty coffee. And so my business partner Tim and I, we brought in the stuff we learned. We learned how to roast coffee. We roasted it with a hot air popcorn popper. We started saying, this is really cool. Maybe we should do this thing. Because I went to school at Stanford, and there's coffee houses all around there, but here in Arizona there was nothing until we went down to visit Bentley's in Tucson and Macy's, which is still going strong, up in Flagstaff. And then we said, well, maybe there aren't any here because nobody's done it yet. And so we started designing the whole Mill Avenue coffee plantation when that whole block had been torn down. It was just a dirt block that we started talking about. They were just building Center Point. So we built it up to 3 stores and a roasting plant. That was 89, and by 93 we sold it because it had gotten like out of hand. The Tempe store was serving about 1 million people a year, and we had like 150 employees system-wide. And for a visionary, I had created my own prison. I know a lot of people here are creative people, and can you imagine having to manage 150 people and you can't do any creative work? I was like miserable. And so we decided to sell it. And so we sold it to Second Cup out of Canada, which at the time was the largest coffee company around. They had 200 units, and Starbucks had like 80 when we sold it. And so they said, we believe in people and product. And they did sort of, but they started to strip some of the detail out of it. It got sold and resold and resold and resold. In the meantime, I had worked for them for a couple of years building coffee plantation stores in Texas, California, all over the place. And I saw barbecue, and I was thinking, man, I like barbecue. It's like a third place. And so when we were in Texas, started thinking about that. And then I took a whole year off after coffee plantation, took a gigantic sabbatical. And then I was driving down the road one day and saw the barbecue building. I said, now that is a barbecue building. So I went to the pastor of the church that was in there, and he said, do you want to sell that building? And I said, yeah, because this isn't a very good building for a church. And so we bought that, built it, and that was 11 years ago. And then moved on to doing the Agritopia community, which is a neo-traditional community at Higley and Ray, our family farm, and helped design that, get that thing done. And then Joe's Farm Grill, we always wanted to have that in the house I grew up in, and so started designing that along with the coffee shop, and then all of the agriculture. And then that was 3 years ago. And then last year we opened Liberty Market. I had seen the building across the street forever, and I said, I hope nobody destroys it and puts it in Osco or some horrible thing. And they called me one day and said, you want to buy the building? And I said, sure. And but before I did that, I had to find my operating partners, David and Kirsten, because as a visionary, I don't have any employees ever that report to me. And so I had to have someone that was going to operate the business. And they had a passion for it as well. We forged a partnership, and that was that. So I just do what I'm good at, and they do what they're good at. Yes, ma'am.
How'd you get interested in third places to start with? Where did it come from?
I think it came from college. I think that the coffee house experience in college probably did it. Growing up on a farm, we didn't have any social interaction other than amongst ourselves, that sort of thing. So I think it was at college that I really enjoyed the coffee house scene, enjoyed the conversation. But I tend to be a talker, so if you're a talker, there's what ideal form is there other than the third place. And so I think it was at college that I started to enjoy that. Yeah.
What do you think is wrong with that building on the northwest corner? Another thing keeps failing over and over again. Because it's only been like 5 different things in the last few years.
Well, I have my own opinion, and so I'll share it with you. That's not to say it's correct.
Are you referring to the place that hosts restaurant after restaurant that fails?
That would be the one. Mm-hmm. That would be the one. I would say that the first 2 operations had a good chance to succeed, but I think they missed on those 2 things that we hold important: the serving from the heart and the passion for the food. Excuse me. Because to my way of thinking, the food wasn't so good and the service wasn't that great. And in our business, those are like the basics. And when it was Gonzo's, there were lines out the door. And it was like 2-hour waits. It was the best thing ever for the barbecue. And but the food, they would go once and they didn't make a good first impression, and so slowly it dwindled. And they opened this range. They blamed the failure of Gonzo's on the fact that we had free lunch day the day they opened. And but it was kind of weird because then they had all these 2-hour waits forever, and they closed 1 year later. So. you can't rest on a name. You definitely have to deliver the goods. But I don't think any independent restaurateur can go into that building now without failure. Just because there's so much built up, it's not karma, it's not anything like that. It's just so much built up thought in people's minds of, is that place still in business or out of business? And you don't want to have people wondering if your place is in business or not. And there's certain just design things that are really bad about the building, about the way it addresses the street, about the interaction between the public space and the private space. And there's just a lot of issues about the building that I think needs to be torn down or else become the gangplank national headquarters. Something like that. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I've noticed greenhouses in the restaurant, Joe's.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, when I ever took it, you guys, like the guys get maybe community gardens and that,
Actually, we're going to experiment with that this fall. We're going to do a small-scale community garden with people who we already know to kind of iron out any kinks, and then probably roll out community gardening probably a year from now. Now, there's a lot of interest in that, and I think it would be something you'd enjoy doing. Yeah.
I'm going to say from your standpoint, you mentioned Sonny being the mayor, and I think as the mayor of Barton. But there's bars and stuff in LA and bigger cities that are doing promos and things for mayorship and stuff like that. This is part of the interaction thing for business realizing that hey, there's people using this service and talking about it. How, from your standpoint, how do you think we can get other small business owners like that to realize that these people are using it, talking about us online, checking in, posting photos here and all that, and maybe get more involved? I think a lot of them kind of hear about stuff and well, it's too much time, I can't do it. So, what do you have to do?
I think the best thing is to actually show them, like if you have a laptop or something, to show them, because I know that Jamie was showing me some stuff about, there was already a lot of buzz about Liberty Market before we even started using Twitter. There were already mentions of being there and that sort of thing. And once I saw, wow, there's a lot going on, we need to be a part of this, it definitely changed my mind. Because it is a time-consuming endeavor to do it. And so we feel as though it's been definitely worthwhile even monetarily to do it. It's, building loyalty, that's always a hard thing to quantify as to, how does that work out in the long run. I just have to think it's a good thing, but I just, even like the East Valley Friday nights and the Thursday mornings and all those things, those even right off the bat have been financially very good for us. And so I think that, a lot of small restaurateurs right now are struggling. And so for them to see that there's a tool they could use, which is essentially free, it requires time, but it doesn't require money, is a good thing to invest in. Because I know Jamie kind of pushed me on that, and it's not like we had a lot of spare time on our hands, but it seemed like a wise thing to look into, and it's been a very good thing. Okay. There are no further questions. Well, thank you very much.